My hand violently trembled as I opened my banking app, tears burning down my cheeks while I sat alone in my car. The numbers glowed back at me, all zeros. Every cent I had was gone. "Get this beggar out," my wife's father had sneered an hour earlier, his voice slicing through the mahogany walls of their family estate. His words echoed, venomous, humiliating. Security had gripped my arm like I was filth. My wife, no, their daughter, stood silent, her eyes fixed on the floor as if she didn't know me. But she knew exactly what she'd done. And as I sat there in the parking lot, my heart pounding so violently it almost drowned out the memory of their laughter, I whispered to myself the only truth I had left. Betrayal has a steep price. When I first met Alina, she said she loved that I was different. Not her world, not her kind. She called me real. I believed her. I built my company from nothing, a small tech firm that grew faster than anyone expected. She joined me at every celebration, smiling beside me at every launch, every interview. I thought we were a team. I thought love and ambition could coexist. But the moment her father took an interest in what I'd built, she changed. Subtle at first. Sudden meetings I wasn't invited to. Contracts reviewed without my input. A few mistakes in transactions I never approved. Then, the merger. The one I signed because she insisted. She said it would secure our future. Just paperwork, she promised. It was a transfer of ownership to her father's company. By the time I realized, it was too late. My shares, my control, my work, gone. Legally, cleanly, perfectly executed. And when I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. She just said, "You'll land on your feet. You always do." That's when I understood. She wasn't part of my fall. She was the architect of it. I didn't react that night. I packed my things quietly, smiled at the guards, shook her father's hand, and walked out. They thought I'd break. They underestimated what silence can do. The next morning, I started planning. Every company leaves digital footprints, emails, server logs, private backups. They had no idea that I still had access to a few of their cloud nodes. They didn't revoke my credentials fast enough. That was their first mistake. I began collecting data. Conversations, transaction trails, unreported payments, forged documents, all neatly stored in an encrypted folder under a false client's name. Their empire wasn't as clean as they pretended. And Alina? She wasn't innocent either. Hidden beneath her designer contracts were offshore accounts, ones she'd opened using my credentials to hide embezzlement under my name. Poetic, really. It took 6 months. 6 months of acting broke, desperate, invisible. I moved into a small apartment, sold my car, and watched from the shadows. While they celebrated my absence, I built something new. A shell company. Small, unnoticeable, but deeply connected. And through that company, I became their vendor, their trusted cybersecurity consultant. They didn't even realize who they'd hired. Tonight was the anniversary dinner of her father's conglomerate. The room sparkled with chandeliers, laughter, and champagne. The same room where I was once thrown out. I watched from my car across the street. My hand hovered over the screen. One swipe, and everything they owned would turn to ash. I'd already mirrored their accounts, frozen transfers, redirected funds to a locked trust. Every dirty deal I'd uncovered had been scheduled to release to the authorities, the press, and the tax bureau simultaneously. Timed, perfect, irreversible. I stared at their faces through the window. Her father's arrogance, her calm deceit, their oblivious confidence. Then I swiped. The notifications began popping up within seconds, phones lighting up, faces paling, laughter dying mid-sentence. Her father's jaw tightened. He looked at his phone again, disbelief morphing into panic. Elena stood frozen beside him, staring at her screen as if it were a noose tightening around her neck. I could almost hear her whisper, "No, this can't be happening." It was. The company's accounts drained, assets frozen, evidence leaked. The headlines would hit within minutes: fraud, tax evasion, insider trading. Their name, once gold, turning to poison in real time. I watched her rush outside, her heels cracking against marble, scanning the parking lot like she could sense me there. For a brief second, our eyes met through the windshield. She didn't look like the woman I married. She looked like the ghost of someone who realized too late what she'd done. The next morning, news channels erupted. Her father was under investigation. Elena's accounts were frozen. Their estate was sealed. The same people who had once bowed to them now spoke their names with disgust. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Revenge isn't about noise. It's about balance. 2 days later, I received a message. From her, just one line. "Was it you?" I didn't reply. Some truths don't deserve answers. Instead, I opened my banking app again. This time, the numbers glowed higher than they ever had. Not from theft, from recovery. From taking back what was mine. I'd created a fund under a new name. Clean, legitimate, untouchable. She and her father were still fighting the legal storm I'd unleashed. Their lawyers couldn't trace the digital ghost that destroyed them, because that ghost was me, rebuilt and reborn. People think revenge is rage, loud and violent. They're wrong. It's quiet, methodical, surgical. It requires patience, the kind that burns in silence and smiles in the dark. I parked outside the same mansion one last time. The gates were locked, the lights dead, the empire gone. I didn't feel anger anymore, just peace. As I drove away, I glanced at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The man staring back wasn't broken. He was whole, reforged in betrayal, sharpened by loss, and tempered by vengeance. Some people pray for closure. I built mine. Because in the end, betrayal always demands payment. And I made sure they paid in full.